All right, so today we're on a really nice topic. So our last lesson we were talking about basically being a creator and moving from the competitive mindset, right? So like
Yeah.
how in our so okay, so there's basically these three divisions, right?
Yep.
So down here, and then so if we were to take like remember the fundamental three steps of being, this three arc model is really important,
Yeah.
right? So the Hawkins scale is
hmm
like the base model we use, but this is going to be overlaid with a lot of other models we use. So I want you to always understand this first three steps.
Yep.
Can you recall to me the three stages of your being just so that it's super clear in how we feel them?
We
Three
say
stages. So there's three parts of your being and what percentages
soul,
they are.
soul, body, and mind.
Yeah,
Mind and body.
yeah, mind and body. And then
Body is 2%.
about 2% of your
Mind
existence.
is 18. 80% is the soul.
Yeah. Now, something I want to say, just because the body's 2% of perception does not mean it's 2% of importance.
hmm
Basically, this is, I want you to think in terms of this for integration, 100 minus 1 equals 0.
Yeah.
Right? So it like just think just because this is 2% doesn't mean body, you
Yeah.
can ignore the body, it's
We
not
use that
important.
for our quality as well too.
Exactly.
When we talk to our clients, like one failed quality,
Exactly.
zero.
Exactly. So it's just like it's super important, right? As a principle, because your body's what also communicates to you when you're in the world, right? So learning to listen to your body is a lot of what this universal mechanics is about. So even though we say your soul is 80% of your being, your body is the primary mechanism which you communicate and interact with the world, right?
Yeah.
So it's even though it's 2% in terms of the reality of your makeup, it's an incredibly important
Let's
2%.
just sit here.
Yeah, no worries. You can sit here.
Yeah. So
And then
take
you
the
can
notes.
turn your stuff
Yeah.
around if you need. And so, guys, the reason this is so important, so I say like 100 minus 1 equals 0. That's really important because remember, when you're looking for integration, which is what we're talking about here, we're talking about full body integration so that we have alignment of purpose, being, and values, all that good stuff. When you're looking for alignment, right, it's just like a train track. If you take a train track and you take it off just an inch, right? Or just like enough that when that train comes barreling down and it makes a little bit of a mistake, especially when there's a lot of momentum and weight behind it, the results are disastrous. Another example is like think of like a motorbike. If we take a motorbike and it's moving super fast, even an inch, the faster and more powerful you become, the smaller your margins for errors become. This is why, especially as we start raising up in vibration, we have to be so particular and taking care of our bodies and taking care of our minds. Because when you're in slow, low vibration, it's like driving a car really slow down the street. You can make mistakes, right? It doesn't really matter, like you're not going anywhere too fast and route mistakes. But when you're going 200, 300 miles per hour and there's a little rock and you do a little at 300, disaster. Like, so don't neglect the body. I really want to emphasize. Oh, my fly was down. There you go, ladies and gents. I was like Rick. Okay, so now we got with this integration and this alignment, right? We have this three-step model. That's really important. So when you're listening to the soul, so another word for soul is like consciousness, spirit, subconscious, whatever. It's the part of you that you can't really control, but is running all your automatic processes, right? So scientifically, that's how we're grounded. How do you communicate with this aspect of yourself, Pat? What's the primary, like if I want to know how my soul is doing or how my subconscious is doing, what's the thing that I can tap into to get that status update? So if I want to know how my body's doing, right? Or so if I want to understand the state of my body, right? I would look at my physical body, my image, right? If I wanted to know the state of my soul, how do I look at my soul? What are what's exactly your emotions? Boom. Right? It's the emotions right here. So your emotions are how, and we're going to talk a difference between emotions and feelings in a second. Um, But it's really important that you understand like the emotions that you're feeling depending on the scale, right? Now, this is done by the Hawkins scale, but remember, all this stuff is like interlocked all the way up. So we talk through emotions, and then if I want to know the state of my mind, what do I register? What do I pay attention to? Yeah, my mind, and then what's going on in the mind that lets me know. What are the things you have that come through your mind? Exactly. Ding, 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 your thoughts, right? I'm making sure he's getting this stuff, right? So that he always knows. So like for instance, if I'm having thoughts like I want to kill myself, is that a thought that tells me my mind state is good? Of course, exactly. It's not. It's a crappy mind state, right? So he's adjusting all the lights and stuff here, so making sure we're good and stuff. Um, and then last but not least, if I want to look at like my physical survival, I want to see the state of the things I'm doing. I look at like my behaviors, my actions, things like that, right? So behaviors, actions, as well as just paying attention to physical reality, right? So physical reality, if I want to see the state, pay attention to your circumstances, pay attention to your actions, your behaviors. What is the state of my life? Like your circumstances. All that is down here. Okay? Now, based upon our creative model, where does the realm of cause start? When we start create the top one, right? Right up here in creation, it starts in your soul. So if you want to create something, you have to feel it in your emotions, first and foremost. That's what drives it. Then you have to see it in your mind, and then and only then will the behaviors, actions come from those behaviors within the physical circumstances will change, right? And that is how it trickles down. And everything you see in the world was built that way. Everything functions that way. So the idea is when we become a conscious creator, we're now being able to do this in a deliberate sense instead of just accidentally. And that's what we're shooting for. And so when you want to step into here, this when I say creation's up here, it means this is the vibration of where you're aware and you're conscious, and then you're also creating from this effortless flow, right? So here we have creation and flow state. I'll do that as a thing because that's going to be super impressive. He's adjusting the blinds and stuff like that with the lighting. Oh, is it? Okay, no worries. Is it better? Okay. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so now the biggest thing, Patty. Now, so in understanding all this, right, and understanding here, what did you notice from last time when we were talking about the difference between competition and creation? We're just kind of recapping what we talked about. Like difference between creation and competition, what was the biggest difference you noticed going from here to here to here? Well, why not? Why not? You say you should. There's no shoulds. So, but like for you, when we were talking about what you wanted and the difficulty with competition versus creation, what's the difference you notice? Right. And what's the biggest, exactly, right? You'll be stuck, right? So when you're competing, you're stuck. You're also, right, when you're fighting, talk to me about ownership here versus ownership here. What does ownership here look like versus ownership here look like? Exactly, there is none. There's no ownership here, right? So when there's no ownership, right, what we would call is that you would say you have no, this is an important word, sovereignty. And when you don't have sovereignty, you don't really have the ability to call the shots or make the rules, right? You're not a market maker. So can you lead from this place in competition? Can you effectively? No, you can't. You can't effectively lead here. And if you look out throughout all of history, when you look at even in the most dire circumstances, the strongest and the best leaders, even when it was like a war, they came from this place of a vision and creative flow because you have to. And that's because when you're trying to compete for something that isn't yours, right? It won't come to you because so a lot of the times when we came from this old world way of thinking where it's like if you want something you have to take it, you have to fight for it, right? That's down here. But now in the world of abundance, because we don't have scarcity, right? That back in the day, like back even like 200 years ago, right? Resources, access to knowledge, everything was very scarce, right? So the world as a whole was down here in survival, and we were just moving up into competition. This is where you get like World War One, World War Two, and then they realize like, oh, we can't really like do that anymore, and we're still kind of simmering around here between competition and survival. But as a byproduct of that, what happens here is now there's an abundance problem. So the issue is when you have abundance of resources, but you take people with a survival mindset, that's what creates competition. Is because everyone's thinking there's scarce resources. But I have a question. Is there more money now or in the past? There's more money. But where did the money come from? They printed exactly. They printed the money. Right? It's not real. They just made more money, right? And that's the thing. And that more money came with more innovation, all this stuff. But the idea is that like if it was scarce, so our ancestors who were fighting and who were struggling and holding on to what little they had, right? When they were fighting for all that, if it was limited, how did more come? You know, if there was nothing more and they used it all up and it was limited and it was going to run out, how is it that there's still resources and that we have more resources than ever? Because resources aren't limited. The idea of scarcity is a lie. Scarcity is not real. People will sell it to you. They'll scare you. They'll go tactical. They'll say you don't have enough time. They'll say you don't have enough. Well, time is a very interesting one. We won't get into that because, yeah, time's an interesting one. But they say, well, you don't have enough time. You won't have enough money. You won't have enough energy. There's always this scarcity. And this is how they create pressure. And from this pressure is where we get this competition. And that is what will always happen. So if you want to move into a place where we're actually able to create, make a book, make a story, make something that inspires, uplifts, and have fun, right? And the thing is, you can have fun in a pressure situation like a basketball game or like a competitive game. But remember, competition, like for instance in basketball, it's it's manufactured. For instance, like the NBA. So right now the NBA finals are happening, right? And they're like there can only be one, but that's manufactured. And the reality is there can be as long as there's time, there will always be more NBA championships, right? But the scarcity is manufactured because that's what allows people to watch it. That's the fantasy of it, right? But realizing that scarcity in reality is fantasy. It's not real. It's not based in reality. And people built this idea of scarcity because what human beings have had scarcity in is our imagination and our knowledge. But as our imagination and our knowledge increases, what do you notice to the resources around us? Right? So as our imagination and our knowledge and our vibration goes up, so do the resources and the way we live. So what does that show? Human beings, our resource, our ultimate resource comes from within inside of us. It comes from here. As our souls expand, so do our circumstances, not the other way around. Our circumstances didn't magically change and then people got rich. That's not how it happened. It's that people upgraded their consciousness that allowed for ideas to come and then they created things and then from that creation more things happen like this phone you guys are talking to me through. I'm old enough that I remember what was like life was like before phones, before we had cell phones, right? So are you, right? You remember what it was like and how much like having the cell phone and having the internet. Do you remember like needing to look up stuff and like go to the library? Or like having like if you wanted to know something like information, you had to really work for it. Like I was considered a smart kid because I read books and I went to the library and like I took the time to like learn stuff. But the minute the phone came out, any edge I had in terms of my intelligence was evaporated because everybody had access to information. Everybody has access to the same thing. And we as I don't think as a collective realize how crazy of a change that was. Like just being able to have infinite information at your fingertips. Like that. And we've had that for like 20 years. It's like a supercomputer, right? Um, and we just have it in our phones now. Like an 8-year-old, a random 8-year-old has access to more information than that. Another one, I'll say this and then I'll move on, is like if you take the richest person, the most powerful, knowledgeable person like 200 years ago, right? Who would you say has more opportunity, them or like the average teenager now? Yeah, because of the technology, right? But that's because is that because of the teenager? Exactly, the technology, right? And that was made from people starting here who then changed the environment for that person, right? And so, and it's not because like that teenager's better. It's just they came into this time. So basically what I'm saying is scarcity is a lie. So now, so we got that. That's super important. So now that we understand that scarcity is a lie, we have these behaviors. Now we're going to talk about what we do at each of these stages, working backwards so that we can make a goal and create a vision out of this, right? So most people think in terms of survival. So they think of like what you think about results, right? The results. I want results. But remember, results are only 2% of the equation, and there's the effect. So what we're going to talk about today is how do I effectively get an effect and create that from the cause, right? Because naturally, and most of the time we have been told to focus on our actions, but have you been taking action for what you want? Yeah. Exactly, right? Because we can see that action isn't enough without the correct guidance, right? Without the correct direction or clarity, a lot of work. So here we're going to talk about clarity as being the number one thing we go into. Because without clarity, you can put, like, you could have lots of action. Like, if someone's like, hey, I need you to go chop down this tree, and then you can go chop down the tree super, super fast. But then if someone's like, I didn't want you to chop down that tree, I wanted you to chop down that tree. All the action in the world doesn't matter if you're chopping down the wrong tree. So now we're going to break this down. So now that we have this, I'm going to break into another three-part framework. Before we move on, do you have any questions on the recap? Okay. And everything's making sense so far? Sweet. Okay. So in this three-part framework, as we build our goals, and everybody on the camera, you guys can do this as well, but this is like a simple exercise I do with all my clients. And it's as simple as this, right? Be, do, have. Most people think about what they want to have. So we're going to start here. And then you think about what you need to do to get there, which is your process, right? And then we're going to think about what you need to be, because being is at the top here, right? And these are the characteristic or traits. The basic idea behind this is like, what is the identity of the person who easily has this thing, right? So for instance, you're like, well, I want to have a $1 billion company. It's like, okay. So for someone who has $1 billion net worth, a $1 billion company, when I step into that person's brain, what is their way they think? How do they approach things like money? What are the relationships they're having? Who are the conversations they're being with? What's the identity? For someone who easily has that, where they don't breathe about it, they don't think about it, what is that person occupying? So a good example would be like, can you think of a state? Is there anything like, for instance, you have now that you didn't have, say, 10 years ago? Well, sure. I mean, okay, yeah, millions of dollars. We can do that. Let's do something. I want something a little less. We can do millions of dollars. I can't necessarily. No, I want to do millions of dollars, but I think everyone always focuses on money, and I want to move away from money. I want something a lot more like kind of almost that you take for granted, like something that you have now. There's a really easy one. You have kids, right? 10 years ago, you had kids. 10 years ago, did you have kids? Okay. So let's talk about that transition. Okay. So there's a time 10 years ago. Were you even married? Yeah. Okay. So 10 years ago, you were not married. Were you dating it? Were you dating her? Okay. So you were single 10 years ago. Well, I guess was there a time you were single in between there? You were the, let's just say you 10 years ago you were yeah, into Silicon Valley. Okay. Okay, yeah, yeah. So let's say so single, right? So he goes from single, and now after 10 years, right? You're married with kids. Okay. Now, when you were single, right? What would you say is this in terms of in terms of what you have? The clarity is here. Here you were just alone. What did you have when you were single that you don't have now? You had a lot of free time. So you have free time. What else? Right. You feel like nothing holding you back. Oh, that's intense. Okay. Holding. Yeah. And then like probably less responsibility. Yeah, less responsibility, right? Okay. Now, so this is what he had, right? Now let's talk about what you didn't have that you have now. Like what didn't you have? Probably. Okay. So someone who cares for my well-being. I cared about you, man. Mm, yeah, that's true. Well-being. Okay, yeah, in your career. Okay, what else? So you had stability, a stability in career, someone who cares about your well-being. One more thing. You think about something else? Yeah, that when you were single, you're like, man, when I'm married with kids, what else would I like? What do you think about it? Did you want that when you were looking? Right. So you felt like so you felt did you feel like lost without responsibility, like a lack of purpose? Okay, so you were a little lost without purpose. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Right. Right. That makes sense. So it's like looking for that kind of purpose or whatever. That's why you were in Silicon Valley, right? You were looking, trying to figure something out. So, so that's exactly it. So now, someone who has that purpose, now that you got plenty, you got purpose, easy, you got plenty of responsibilities, right? And you have a stable career, right? And yeah, and then you have yeah, someone who cares because they're invested. So it's like a mutual investment, right? They're mutually invested, right? So here, okay. Now, if you see, this is what this guy has that this guy hasn't, and this is what this guy had that this guy hadn't, right? During this transition, if you had gone to this guy and could tell this guy, hey, this is how you're going to get from, like, did you want to be married with kids 10 years from now when you were single? Yeah, you wanted it, right? And you're like, wanted it. So now, if you'd gone back to him and been like, "Hey, you're going to be married with kids, and this is how it's going to happen," do you think this guy would have liked that process and been like, "I'm okay with that process"? Like, if you could go back and be like, "Hey, this is how it's going to happen, and this is how you're going to get married with kids." and it's going to feel like this, and it's be like this as you
I don't
change.
think I would.
You'd want to?
I will still.
Okay, so he'd be gung ho for the process.
It really depends on. I think.
You didn't feel resistant to change.
Well, I keep pushing myself to.
Right, right. Well, that's true. You have a pretty, you got that good. I mean, that's why he's my client, right? It makes sense, right? So you were looking to change. You were looking for growth, right?
Yeah.
So this is how you got it. Now, do you think this guy could have predicted how it happened? Had no clue, right? Had no clue. And so here we see in this process the do. So you didn't really know what you needed to do then, but you knew what you wanted. You knew what you wanted to have, right? Now, what does this guy need to be? This guy here, what did the guy you are now, what did he need to be in order to have that this guy when you were single didn't have? What didn't he have? Who wasn't he? We want in terms of your characteristics, not in terms of having something, but in terms of who was he? His characteristics. Was he less brave or less assertive? Like what was the person? You understand?
So the difference between the single.
Yeah, exactly. What were the characteristics that this guy has now
Yeah.
that this guy didn't? In terms of who you were.
It's really self.
Okay. So like confidence. Okay.
And
Self security.
not,
What else?
not having someone determine your value.
Okay. So like like yeah, so internally validating. And okay. I'll use your words. Don't let me change your words. So you found value within, right? So this guy was always looking for other people for his value. Well, this guy finds value more within.
Just a lot of
Uh-huh.
from
Right, 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 right. So I have a question. Now, this is a question. Now, do you think this guy knew what he needed? You don't think he knew what he needed? How did you discover?
like the characteristic.
Yeah,
I think it's really the process.
the process was educating him.
That we made myself realize. I mean, without the process of doing, not know what character
What if you could though? If you could go back, if you could go back and tell him, "Hey, work on these things," like right. Hmm. So that's exactly what we're doing now. Is I want you to now imagine and project into the future, and there's a scientific basis for this. But I love it how you said like you especially this. Yeah, this is one thing. This is one thing that's really brilliant about you. I just want to say like Patrick as a client, like one of the things you really understand is you really are like you know how to surrender to process. Like you really trust process. So you have a lot of faith in process, which I think is really good. So it's like as you get more clear on your vision, things naturally just start coming into alignment because you just so naturally know how to trust and surrender to process when you pick the right ones and you're clear on them. That's really cool because like a lot of people, you can tell them, okay, this is the program, do this, and they still struggle to follow it, because they just don't have that faith in themselves. And that's one thing I'd say, like you really have a lot of like faith in yourself. You have a lot of self belief. That's one thing I think is like you really have well. Like you have a lot of self belief. Even when you have doubts or things like that, like you're self aware. You have a lot of self awareness and like you know how to like surrender to process. That's a really good trait to have. So what we're going to do now is with your vision, what you want to have, right? We're going to essentially say this guy, right? This single guy is you now, is the person now. So we're going to say now. So you're no longer single, but you are where you are wanting what you want. So let's start with the have. What do you want to have that you don't have? Yeah, in terms of the vision, like like what are the so this is in your sheet here.
Yeah.
The tangible outcomes you want in 1 year. So in 1 year,
Something I created, not just something that was
okay,
that was passed on.
okay,
Although I could do something, something that was passed on wasn't recreated, it still belongs to me. So I do want to.
you want to own it.
Yeah, I do want ownership of something that's
Okay,
like from end to end.
okay, you want to. I love that. So that's really cool that you get that. You're seeing that. So you want ownership of something.
Yeah,
You want
from
ownership,
end to end.
ownership,
Beginning, yeah, beginning to
end to end. You don't want to inherit anything.
I mean, I accepted
Of
my
course.
inheritance already, and
Yeah.
I accepted that I could do it on my inheritance,
Right.
which is already one of my goals that I achieved.
Right.
I want something not only with what was inherited, I want something I want to
Yours.
prove to myself that I can create something.
Absolutely. So you want something that you've created, something all your own, complete ownership. That's really cool that you can say that. So in terms of put that down as your item, just be like something that is mine that I own completely, right? Because that's really core to that you understand that, right? Because when we were talking about, you're like, well, how does it have something to do with content? And it's like, okay, but if you could own something that was successful, it has nothing to do with content. You'd be perfectly happy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like it has nothing. Yeah, exactly. So it's like we're not really talking about content here. Like that's gonna happen, but that's not really what we're talking about. Exactly. Exactly. Content's just a process, right? But it's really like I want something that is mine and that I have created, right? And so that's really, really cool. What else does he have? Because that's the one item. That's pretty good. What else is there? Like if you had to put two more things down. So you want something that you've created that is yours. And right now, what is that specifically? As you get more specific, let's kind of sink your teeth into it. That's out of colors, the brand, the personal brand. What is it for you? Like, what is the thing you've built end to end that's yours that you're working on right now?
Yeah, like
Your personal brand.
personal brand,
Personal brand / consumer brand. Okay. So now we're working and building a brand, right? So that's really very specifically yours. So something that's tied with your face, like with that's been tailored by your decisions, right? That you've been able to build on it. Okay. So that's obviously why we're here, right? So we're building a personal brand, consumer brand. That's for him. That's a person of his, right? Now, in terms of the next thing, what does success look like for that? Because you're saying 1 year from now, I want to have it. It's on the mind. So what does that look like end to end? What does that look like? So, like with a wife and kids, it's a woman who's committed to me and kids who are physically walking around. So 1 year from now, when you have something that you've created that is your personal brand and consumership, what does it look like to have it? Because you can have it now. We can say, okay, you have it now. You have a personal brand, you've made it, but what does that look like with success?
first of all, it has to be profitable and it has to have a very
Profitability.
strong team and system in place.
Define strong.
A team want that want to have plans to launch something. It's like an agent, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of people will help you succeed.
Right.
And bring the plan to success, which is profitability.
Okay. So for you, profitability and then the strong team. So let's really so first off, there's a couple of things here. So I really want to challenge your metrics here because you're saying profitability, which I guess is just money margin, right? Money margin.
Working business.
Okay.
So of course, it needs to have it needs to be backed up by working business model has to be profitable.
Right. So basically, so get specific. What's that success like when you see that you're like, I am success? Like, get me the specific. Like you're looking at it. I want you to visually tell me what is the physical, like as physical as you can. Get down into the physical. What is the physical indicator? You physically have 2 kids and a wife.
Yeah.
They're physically in
So
your
yeah,
home. So
1 million GMV.
Mhm. Okay.
1 million in terms of yeah.
Okay, and that's in AR. Is ARR or MRR?
MRR.
Yeah. Okay, your MRR. Okay.
1 million.
Okay, sounds good. So good. That's a goal. So we're looking for 1 million GMV MRR. Now, if you were selling, now I have a question. If, say, for instance, someone was like, "Hey, Patrick, I want you to dig ditches for 1 million MRR. I'll give you, if you can go outside, I'll take pictures of you digging ditches. So you'll just go and you'll dig ditches and you'll have million MR. Exactly. Oh yeah. No, so if your brand is digging ditches, let's say they're like your brand is digging ditches.
No, it's definitely okay. So for 2 months, that has to be specific. So
Yeah. What is it? Oh, sure.
The first year.
Does it have to be beauty?
Yes.
Okay. So you're dead set. It must be in the beauty
Yeah.
brand. It must be in beauty. Okay. That's really important. Is that coming because of experience or is that becoming because you really want it?
I do want to.
Okay. Okay. So he
I'm not
wants,
gonna do cars and stuff like that.
right?
Although like right here it's for video cars. I do want to. I do want.
What is video games? What if,
I'm not. I like video games, but it's not something that's I want to.
I'm not talking about what you think is possible, but like really want to. You guys
I
are
really want to.
okay. No, that's good.
Yeah, I do really
Okay.
want to. Makeup, whatever.
Why beauty? Why
It's
beauty?
my blood.
Right? You feel like
My
it's
family.
okay. You're gonna. Do you feel like you'd be able to feel that same sense of ownership, even though you're still doing something that your family does?
Yeah,
You feel
of course.
you feel like you'd be able to have that. All right, and that's it. So we have